Boxing really helps me with my violent tendencies. Peace is ideal, but peace doesn't always work. That's why violence is a necessary thing. There's this huge respect that I have for the individuals that I fight. You can look at any picture in a different, and I feel like a different filter, like a different lens, and boxing really helps me with my violent tendencies. Like, I don't know anyone who becomes a boxer and becomes more violent outside of the ring. I think that most of the time kids come in here and they kind of have this chip on their shoulder and they kind of get humbled. You know, I don't care who you are, you're gonna get humbled in here if you just come in here. I don't care how big you are, how fast you are, how athletic you are. If you come in here with an open mind, you're gonna learn. But if you come in here thinking that you're King Kong, you're gonna get humbled. And like, I love that when I see these guys that are acting like King Kong start to develop into a more mature being, because, I mean, out on the street, they might be like just some cocky guy that, you know, mouths off to people, gets in street fights. But like, once they start coming in here and learning, they don't feel the need to do that anymore because they're confident with themselves. And I think that there's this macho mentality that people have and perceive violent people to be. And boxing is absolutely a very violent sport, but it's an agreement. There's a mutual respect between the two fighters, especially like inside of the ring, like inside the gym. We're friends, we spar, and we try to hit each other to get better. We don't hate each other. We are trying to hurt each other sometimes, depending on like what the sparring calls for and what we're trying to do. But at the end of any sparring session, we give each other hugs because we love each other. And so, even at the end of every fight, my opponents have always hugged me out of just respect. In the beginning, you don't want to try to get in the ring and, you know, be that guy's friend. No, that guy's not your friend until the fight's over, but there's a respect that you have. It's kind of, I've had more, you know, I've been with more women than I've had people fight in the ring with me. So there's this kind of special bond that we have, that it's this huge respect that we have for each other, that if I didn't have him and he didn't have me, we'd probably be in jail for fighting someone else on the street, because it's just our primal urge. Boxing has this kind of WWE persona of these guys like fighting back and forth, acting like they're on Jerry Springer or something like that. And I mean, it's presented that way, I guess, because it sells, and that's fine. People can take that, and I just think it's really dishonest, because I really don't know any fighters that are like that really have this mentality of like conflict with the other guys. Like, they have beefs with one another. That happens, but I mean, like, they play on that, like it's this persona that they wear to try to draw people in, and it's just really dishonest. That's why people think that boxing and MMA and stuff like that is just kind of like this sport for stupid people with like low IQs that do push-ups all day and, you know, eat eggs. I mean, like, these just meatheads. Yeah, there are people like that, but they're not near. I've never met anyone that is that bad to that degree of ridiculousness. I think it would be better if people could talk the way that they want to about it without feeling afraid to be perceived as weak. Because like, Mike Tyson in his early days, whenever he was with Customato, he definitely had a brain. I mean, he talked about how fear in the ring is useful, how fear is a natural instinct to survive. He understood that fear in the ring is useful. According to Customato, Mike Tyson's trainer, is the one thing that people fear most is being called a coward. If you're afraid, then there's nothing worse on the streets. But fear's like a fire. It can feed you or it can hurt you. And if you can control the fire and use it to your advantage, it is a useful tool. He says fear is a tool of exceptional people. Fear is the friend of exceptional people. And it's just this macho persona that's really dishonest, and these guys have no clue as to what fighting is really about. In boxing, we kind of make this warrior or war hero type of thing that we have in our brains kind of built up, and we've just turned it into this ridiculous WW like WrestleMania mask it's just not a warrior at all. That's not the archetype. That's not the true sense of what a warrior is. I mean, like, just the warrior persona, if you look at through time, has really changed into it kind of reflects on our society to show how bad we've become as individuals, because like, I mean, in Japan, like hundreds of years ago, their archetype was Miyamoto Musashi. And this guy was very calm, very intelligent, very intellectual warrior. And now you have like Brock Lesnar, who probably can't read very well and made it through college because he was a good wrestler. That's what type of people you have. That's what we look up to as a society. And it reflects badly on a whole. That's okay though. There's still people out there that are decent, but they're just not making the headlines. I used to express myself through music, but I found that was physically inadequate. It was definitely creatively adequate, but I felt too physically amped up. I'm just someone trying to know myself, because I really believe men are their own enigmas. Human beings are just enigmas to themselves, and everything outside of them is a clue to something inside themselves to help them become more at peace with themselves, or not at peace with themselves if they choose not to handle the situation properly. And I think there's always proper ways of handling every situation. Peace doesn't always work. Peace is ideal, but peace doesn't always work. That's why violence is a necessary thing. It's really not a necessary thing, but since we're humans and we don't need to go to war with people, but like, it's necessary because I need to express myself in the ring. It's this impulse, this urge, I have to do this. I have to be violent. I have to do this. Otherwise, I would not be sane. Since I have started at age 28, most people think it would be irrational to say, oh, let's, do this for the rest of your life and become like some kind of title holder. But I don't think it's too irrational, because I have a very young body, and really age is just a state of mind anyway. So, I mean, people's brains stop developing or the adult brain from like 18 to 25. That's when they say your brain is fully developed as an adult, but like, science is starting to understand that that's not the case. I mean, yes, it's more neuroplastic whenever you're a child, but when you're older, your brain still changes, which is why people can still get addicted to things whenever they're older, because, those neurons will move from one place to another just based on like what activities you're doing. So I can still learn this. It's not something that I would have to do since I was young. So it is something that I would like to do for a career, or just because I'm doing it amateur. I'm doing this amateur because I want to get as much experience as possible. But in terms of like goals, for now, we're looking at ringside novice to see if I can win that. And then after that, he wants to see how I contend in the open class. And then from there, it was just, all these little steps that we're gonna take to see exactly where I need to go. I mean, my trainer, he kind of knows more of the business end of it. I'm just gonna be here and be prepared no matter what. Like, I'll always be ready to fight. I'm always gonna be in shape, so that if he's like, hey, you have a fight today, I'm ready, there's nothing that I have to be prepared for since I'm already prepared. I wanted to play music, and each person has their craft that they develop. And I think that boxing is kind of this craft that I'm developing. It's something that I lose myself in. That's what boxing is to me. It's something I lose myself in, where I feel like I don't exist anymore. My worries, my thoughts, all that kind of go away in the rhythm of motion and certain techniques and certain situations that you have to adapt to, like throwing a jab. It's like, okay, the body has a choice to do, and like you refine these instincts of reflexes. Usually the most base instinct is flinching, but how beautiful is it from flinching to someone throwing a punch at you and slipping your head and throwing that jab and counter, like coming over the top and countering. Like to me, it's refining what is to be an animal, because humans are animals with that. And I think there's a difference between humans and animals, is that humans have instincts and animals have instincts, but humans can refine their instincts. That's the only thing that really separates us from animals. And like, I think that a lot of times that since we see ourselves as separate, we kind of lose ourselves, because we are still animals. It's just we need to engage in our instincts a little more and refine our instincts. Since I'm a father and having a family, the wife, boxing, the way that it can interfere, because boxing is a very extreme sport. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of commitment, and there's really not much external reward for it. And so like, luckily my wife is very understanding and cool with me boxing, because she knows it makes me happy. Everything that I'm learning is coming from this, and it's nice because I really enjoy growing and learning. So as a father and a husband, it's a lot about balance and time of this, and not just that, like in my energy. So like, boxing is very high energy, very catabolic, whereas time with my wife and kid, it's like, you know, it can be more mellow and relaxed, but like I'm still high energy and hyper around them. So I mean, it doesn't always call for that. You have to be more receptive and intuitive to other people. So I guess balancing what position that I'm in is what it's been really teaching me. The reason why I box is because, I mean, I think it's more of a primal urge that I follow. It's not really anything that I am consciously aware of, other than the results that I'm here and I'm fighting and I'm doing all these things, refining my instincts. I wrestled in high school, and once I stopped wrestling, I would say, I mean, like medical professionals would call it like a manic episode or psychotic episode, but I think that you shouldn't look at psychological issues like it's just genetic or something. What's going on in the person's life? It's like, well, I'm not being fed. I wasn't going to school, so I wasn't being fed mentally anymore. I wasn't being fed through my body, so I didn't feel like any kind of connection to it. It was just dissonant. So I needed to somehow connect my heartstrings back to the environment that I found myself in. And I actually believe that boxing has connected those strings back.